Really quick, everybody, this entire video will be timestamped, so if you don't want to watch whole thing and just get straight into a different fight, please check the pinned comment or the chapter bar right down below you. Again, this entire video will be timestamped, and I'd appreciate you guys watching whatever part that you'd like to. If you're sticking around, everybody, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with many YouTube channels, and welcome back to another full card breakdown and prediction video, this time for UFC Vegas 82. Ailin versus Craig, guys. We're going to take a look at every single fight. We're going to break them down. Maybe there's some options for betting. We're going to take a look at all of them today, starting with the early prelims. And again, timestamps are there if you'd like to skip to any particular part. Starting off with the first fight, and the first fight's actually a little bit difficult to break down, guys. And this is kind of going to be, honestly, the theme of the card. If you're looking to bet on this card, there is not really a ton to really look forward to. But anyways, we have Lucas Alexander taking on Jeka Saragih. Now, this one's really tough because both guys kind of have, in my opinion at least, around the same level of skill set. Even if you want to compare power a little bit, to be honest with you, both guys are very even in the stand-up. And while Alexander has the potential to explore the ground options, we've seen that a little bit from him, I still wouldn't count on him to go with that. Like, if you're going to go that route, I would imagine both guys are just going to come in here and look to better one another in the striking department. Alexander, again, has the potential to take it to the ground, but I don't think he will. Other than that, like, both guys, they're very nice strikers, have some nice power, have some nice accuracy. Sometimes Jeka can be a tad sloppier, maybe a tad bit powerful, but it's like a very, very even level skill in my opinion. The only thing that really stands out, because they both are fairly new to the UFC, want to take a look at the competition. Lucas Alexander did take a loss to Joanderson and Brito, and then bounced back with a nice win over Steven Peterson. Jeka, on the other hand, coming into the UFC, he's only lost one fight to Anheliger. So the reason that I'm going to lean towards Alexander in this pick is, one, because we've seen a little bit more with him against high-level talent, and two, if these guys are going to be striking together, I gotta take in the height and reach advantage for Alexander too. I give him a very, very slight edge in this matchup, but again, this is definitely one to stay away from if you're going to be betting on this fight. But for the video, if you had a gun to my head, I would be picking Alexander, although again, it's a very close fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have Charles Johnson taking on Rafael Estevam. Now, this is a very interesting fight because if you guys follow the channel at all, you would know I am a fan of watching Charles Johnson fight. Although Charles Johnson, as of recently, has not been able to put it together. I was very high on this guy coming to the UFC. We've seen him have quite a few fights at this point. He's been a very, very active fighter. And of course, you can see by his record, he has had some wins, he's had some losses, but what I want to point you out to is these two recent losses. The Ode Osborne fight, it was a split decision, but he still didn't look like too great in that fight, you know what I mean? In the Cody Durden fight, he was a big step behind. We finally seen Charles Johnson have a weakness in his game, and that being takedown defense. Once you get him to the ground, very difficult to finish, like he can get up, no problem. But Charles Johnson, he really, really needs to learn how to defend a takedown, man, because that is a big weakness in the game. If this guy were to get some even decent takedown defense, because he has none. He has none at this point. I mean, he's fighting these guys in the flyweight division. They'll take him down over and over again with the cardio. If he gets even a little bit of takedown defense, just put the work into it, this dude can be an absolute contender in the flyweight division. But he's taking on Rafael Estevam, who he is a grappler. That's a little bit of a tough part for Charles Johnson, but he hasn't fought anybody, you know? He's had very, very nice performances, been a little bit inactive. We saw him in LFA, he got a very nice KO, and then on the Contender Series, he ended up getting another KO, but he has shown to have okay takedowns. The takedowns in the wrestling we've seen from him is nothing really impressive, at least from what I've seen. But Charles Johnson, man, this guy's takedown defense is really, really tough. And to be honest with you, I know some people are kind of high on Cody Durden. I'm not. I'm not saying Cody Durden sucks or anything. I'm just he's a little bit unproven to me, in my opinion. I know I can get some flack for that one. But, so, here's the big question. It's all about, can Rafael Estevam get Charles Johnson to the ground? If it's a grappler coming to this fight, I would say, yeah, probably, especially from what we've seen for Charles Johnson in his last couple performances. But even with that, we've seen this guy get taken down over and over again. If Charles Johnson somehow remains this fight on the feet, keeps it up standing, he'll piece him apart because Charles Johnson, he has great cardio. Well, the wrestling can get to him at points, but for the most part, he has very good cardio, very good power. He lands his shot accurately. This dude is a very, very slick striker, I just can't ride with him anymore. I was very high on him coming into the UFC. I can't ride with him anymore, but I'm very stuck because Estevam hasn't fought anybody like Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson is a very good fighter. That's why this one's tough for me. I'm going to give Charles Johnson one more chance. I'm going to give him one more chance. That's going to be my pick for this fight. I'm definitely not going to bet on him. Definitely not, because I got bit in the butt last time when I bet on him. If he gets past Rafael Estevam, I will still be a little bit high on Charles Johnson to fight guys at this level. But I mean, like, he's got to fix the takedown defense problem because it's going to really, really hurt his career. Now, he can't go 3 in a row. I'm going to take Charles Johnson because I haven't seen enough from Estevam that really makes me go, okay, he can beat Charles Johnson. His takedowns aren't all there, but he has the option to get to the ground. He's pretty relentless. I'm going to go with Charles Johnson reluctantly. Moving on to the next fight, we have Chad Anheliger, and I always have trouble pronouncing that last name, so apologies right there. He's taking on Jose Johnson. Now, this is a little bit of a tough fight. Again, this is what I was talking about with this card, man, because there is a lot of very, very good matchups here, and this is one of them. Both guys are very, very good strikers who don't typically take it to the ground, although Chad does have a decent ground game. We've seen, I mean, like, we just haven't seen enough from Johnson to really gauge his ground game, except for when he was taken down against Damon Blackshear. He got taken down quite a few times, actually. He was just controlled and submitted, but of course, like, Damon Blackshear, I am so high on that dude. I can't even tell you, like, I think this dude is going to, like, has championship potential one day. I look at that loss, to be honest with you, like it's nothing. Damon Blackshear, losing to him, I don't think that there is a problem there. But other than that, Jose Johnson, like that was his first fight in the UFC. On the Contender Series, he looked pretty good, but before that, he had some nice wins. Other than that, like there's nothing really to talk about with Jose Johnson because he is still relatively new to high competition. Now, taking a look at the monster, he kind of lives up to the name, to be honest with you, Chad, because he has very, very nice power, very nice striking. The only thing that worries me is his age here. He's getting up there in 36 years old. We haven't seen him slow down just yet, and he's had a couple very nice wins and just recently had a loss. In that loss, though, like, I mean, for a 36-year-old, I don't believe his age is quite showing yet because he still comes forward. He looks really good, has nice cardio, and has very, very nice power behind it. The question is, you have a guy who's 36 years old coming in against another prospect who's 28 years old, and that 28-year-old fighter will have a significant reach advantage on you, especially if there's going to be a striking match. I believe Chad is always live to get a KO, especially since we've seen Jose Johnson be KO'd before. I am not going to bank on the 36-year-old to get it done with a significant reach disadvantage. I could very well see him coming in, and Johnson, he's a very, very slick striker himself. Both these guys, when it comes to, like, I would imagine technique, like, I would imagine that these two would be a little bit similar, but Johnson will just have that extra little bit that he needs with the youth. That's what I'm going to pick with Jose Johnson. I think that Chad's time is coming. We haven't seen it yet, but I can't bank on him. I'm going to pick Jose Johnson here, although it's a pretty close fight. Like, again, this is kind of like the theme of the card. Very, very tough. I'm going to be making very few bets on this card, let me tell you. Moving on to the next fight, guys, this is going to be a really fun one. We have Jonathan Pearce taking on Joanderson Brito. Now, Jonathan Pearce has put together a little bit of a quiet role in the featherweight division because you don't really hear about Jonathan Pearce. You don't really hear people talking about Jonathan Pearce, but this dude comes in, very nice pressure, looks to grapple with you, he can strike. This dude does a little bit of everything, but of course, the game plan is to take you down and ground and pound you. He's had a very, very nice clean run so far against some decent opponents. I mean, like, it could get better, but I mean, like, the opponents are decent. He's been really, really making his way up rankings, but he's taking on Joanderson Brito, and to be honest with you, I'm a little bit high on Joanderson Brito because, first of all, you want to talk about the Contender Series. How well has this win aged? Diego Lopez. My man Diego Lopez. We just seen this guy have a steamrolling effect throughout the UFC so far. Although, I will mention, it's been over 2 years ago, so make of that what you will. But coming into the UFC, he had a loss against Bill Algeo. But after that, very, very active fighter. And he's looked very good, in my opinion, against better opponents than Jonathan Pearce has taken on. This is going to be tough because Joanderson Brito, this is the whole thing. Can Joanderson Brito keep Jonathan Pearce off of him? And that's a big if, right? Like, that's a big thing to ask. I almost want to say he will be able to because Jonathan Pearce, of course, his game plan is clear. He'll take you down. He'll want to beat you up, right? But something that I love about Joanderson Brito, when you want to talk about his groundwork, I always say, guys, more people need to do this. Joanderson Brito will punch his way through submissions. And while it's not to say, like, I understand Jonathan Pearce doesn't necessarily always go for submissions, Joanderson Brito will not just accept that bottom position. He will punch his way out. He won't just go, like, move for position. He won't try to sweep you. He will try to take your head off on the ground. That's what I really like about him. And when you're on the feet, this guy is also sloppy. That's the problem. You have Jonathan Pearce who's going to be a little bit more technical, Joanderson Brito who's going to be a little bit more sloppy, but that sloppiness is way more powerful than Jonathan Pearce. Guys, again, this card's so tough, man. Like, I'm not confident any pick that I've picked so far. I'm going to take Joanderson Brito. I like what I've seen from him when it comes to defense on the ground. Like, I'm second guessing myself now. I'm going to pick Joanderson Brito. I'm going to have a little bit of faith that he'll be able to keep Jonathan Pearce off of him. And if Jonathan Pearce takes him to the ground, Joanderson will have the defense that he needs to find his way back up to the feet. Plus, the KO is always live. I like Joanderson Brito. I like the competition that he's faced so far. I'm going to pick him to win this fight with I'd say like a medium confidence level on that one. Moving on to the next fight, we have Mick Parkin taking on Caio Machado. Now, guys, I don't have too much to break down for this one. Both guys coming off the Contender Series have looked okay even before that. Both of them have very good records, but here is the breakdown for you, and I know it's going to be very, very, it's going to be short. I like Mick Parkin more than I like Caio Machado because when you take a look at their fights, especially on the Contender Series, and I know Mick Parkin has had a win since he got into the UFC, and that really cements more of my prediction here. I'm picking Mick Parkin because while I'm not high on either fighter, okay, I don't think that, I honestly don't think either of them have a future in the UFC, but Mick Parkin has displayed more technique than you typically see at heavyweight. When you see Bigfoot fight here, that's just the sloppiest heavyweight fight that you get the point. You get, like, if you've watched especially his Contender Series fight, I can't believe he got signed, dude. I really don't. I don't mean any disrespect for that, but it's just sloppy heavyweights doing what sloppy heavyweights do and just swinging, one person wins. Mick Parkin has actually displayed technique. He's actually displayed technique. He's going to be bigger. He does an okay job at slowing the fight down at his own pace. I think Mick Parkin's going to win the fight. I don't think Caio Machado is nearly at the level that Mick Parkin is, but I still don't even really think too much of Mick Parkin, to be honest with you. So, I mean, it's heavyweight. The KO is always live. You got to think about that, especially if you're betting on heavyweight fights, but I see a clear level of difference between Mick Parkin and Caio Machado in this fight. Give me Mick Parkin for my pick. Moving on to the next fight, we have Lucie Pudilova taking on Ailin Perez. Now, to be honest with you, it's a low-level fight, man. It's a low-level fight in a low-level division. Lucie, I will say, though, has been making significant improvements every single time that we've seen her. She has some nice power to her, but other than that, she's wildly inconsistent. I know you could argue that she won against Jocelyn Edwards, but to be honest with you, it was close enough where I don't even care, so I'd have to watch that fight again. I probably didn't pay too much attention, to be honest with you, in that fight either way, because I didn't really care to, that's like a snack break type of fight. Anyways, taking on Ailin Perez in this fight. Ailin Perez okay striking. I would imagine if these two would go up and just strike, I would imagine Pudilova would have a little bit of the edge, but Perez definitely will have the cardio advantage and definitely have the wrestling advantage in this fight. She has a tough time finding submissions and honestly staying on the ground, but yeah, she's nicknamed Nurmagomedov at this point, and honestly, for good reason. For the 135 bantamweight division, she does have very good cardio and very, very good takedowns, especially for the division. I would argue, too, the problem is it's the lack of takedown defense in the division rather than just Perez's wrestling skill level, but honestly, and I'm going to pick Ailin Perez in this fight, but I'm not really confident in saying so. I got to go with the cardio advantage. I got to go with the 8-2, especially coming off of a very dominant win. But then again, you want to look at that dominant win, it's against Ashley Evans Smith, who is probably one of the worst fighters in UFC history. You know what I mean? So it's a low-level fight, low-level division. I'm going to pick Ailin Perez, but, anything can happen in these divisions. Moving on to the next fight, guys, I feel bad, man, because there are such tough fights to pick this time around. We have Nikolas Motta taking on Trey Ogden. Whoever did the matchmaking for this card needs a raise. Seriously, because another really, really tough fight. You have two strikers going at it, while Ogden definitely has the takedown advantage. Ogden can also explore the groundwork, but Motta is a fighter with fantastic takedown defense. Has this guy even been taken down? I don't even think I've seen him on the ground. Regardless, this dude, every time someone shoots, Motta does a great job defending it. Okay, let me start, because Motta, while I am talking really high about him, great takedown defense, great striking, he has been a little bit inconsistent as of lately coming into the UFC. He lost to Jim Miller, which no shame in that, but then bounced back with a very nice win and then a recent loss again, Emmanuel Torres. But in that recent loss, it was like a 2-second fight. He came in, bang, he got elbowed. It wasn't 2 seconds, but you get the point. Very quick finish. He's taking on Trey Ogden, who also is a little bit inconsistent. Both fighters are very good, though. Very good striking. This dude can kind of do it all. Coming into the UFC, had a close loss to Jordan Levitt, then bounced back against a very nice Daniel Zellhuber, and then lost recently to Ignacio Bahamondes. And that's the problem, because Ignacio Bahamondes kind of looked pretty good in that fight. And when you're looking at this fight, okay, against Bahamondes, Trey Ogden kind of got stuck where Bahamondes just kind of did what he wanted, and I could very well see the same thing happening with Nikolas Motta here. It all depends because if they remain on the feet, both guys are very good, okay? Motta will definitely be more technical, and I don't know if he's more powerful, but he will definitely be a little bit better when it comes to technical fighting. But when you're talking about Trey Ogden, he has way more of a complete game. He could absolutely explore the takedowns, absolutely explore the submissions, but Motta has great takedown defense. He has great sprawls. He has a very, very nice way of getting people like off of you if you were shooting for a takedown or like making you a little bit tentative, not being able to shoot against that takedown. Again, it's one of those where can Ogden get it to the ground? Because I would imagine that would be the game plan. I would imagine so. But then again, we haven't really seen Motta on the ground. We don't know. Like, what if Trey Ogden does get him to the ground? How good is Motta on the ground? Because I honestly, guys, I don't think we've seen him on the ground. I don't think so. If we've seen him on the ground, it was for very little. I don't remember seeing him on the ground at all. It's a tough fight. It's a very, very close fight. Certainly not one to bet on. I will take Nikolas Motta, though, because I can see the same thing happening with Nikolas Motta that we have seen with Trey Ogden against Ignacio Bahamondes. I can see that happening, where he kind of just coasts his way to decision, looks a little bit better in the fight. I'm going to pick Motta, but again, it's another very low confidence pick, guys. Moving on to the next fight, guys, another fantastic matchup. We finally have Cesar Almeida coming to the UFC, and he's taking on Christian Leroy Duncan. This is a fantastic fight. Fantastic, guys. Cesar Almeida had a lot of hype coming into the Contender Series, and he passed that test with flying colors. One of the guys that I have been most impressed with on the Contender Series, there was just an incredible display of skill. There was, in this fight, he came in, the UFC hyped this guy as a kickboxer. You go back, you can see him, he has been a very, very good kickboxer in the past. But this dude came in and showed technique everywhere. There was a little bit of everything in this fight. And I know I'm talking about one performance, but guys, it's his Contender Series fight, and he can only get better. I'm very high on this guy. That's the whole point. He showed everything from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to heart. There was everything in this fight. He showed very nice skill the entire time, and he even landed some ground and pound in this fight. This dude isn't just a kickboxer coming to the UFC. This dude can do a little bit of everything. He's taken on Christian Leroy Duncan, who, again, the UFC was hyping this guy like crazy. Everybody was hyping this guy like crazy. And to be honest with you, if you take a look at his highlights or any of his fights, this dude is a finisher, a very, very good striker in himself. But then came into the UFC. Here's the thing. Armen Petrosyan is an excellent fighter. Okay, so I'm not ready to write this guy off yet, but the hype train was absolutely derailed here. He was just, honestly, Armen was, it's really, really tough, okay? It's really tough because Armen was a little bit unable to have an answer for most attacks, but there was a clear weakness on the ground for Christian Leroy Duncan. And on top of that, Duncan, what I did not like is Duncan was clowning around too much once he found problems. And I talked about this a little bit with Ismail Bonfim, where it really worries me where this guy, he got into a little bit of trouble in this fight and he just started clowning. He started clowning instead of actively looking for a way to really kind of go on about and getting a win. You know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm saying? If you watch his last fight, you would see this. Duncan instead, when he was behind, he was kind of come on, do something. Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman started really getting the better of him. Anderson Silva was just whoa, I don't even care. You know what I mean? I hate when fighters do that, and that shows me that he's not open to getting better. I'm picking Cesar Almeida in this fight. This dude is not just a kickboxer, while Christian Leroy Duncan is. I was just so highly impressed by his Contender Series fight that I'm going to pick him, even though he's 4-0. I'm honestly thinking about placing a bet on this fight, but the inexperience, 4-0, I didn't like, but then again, he has a lot of experience. Take a look at Alex Pereira, kind of a similar thing, but this dude is somebody to watch out for. I'm picking Cesar Almeida in this fight. Now, guys, apologies to put on a quick pause on the video here, but if you are interested in seeing my official plays for every week, every single Thursday or Friday, I will be posting in the community tab for YouTube channel members. Very cheap, by the way, very, very cheap when you're compared to talking about anybody else's betting plans, right? I post exactly what I'm betting on, if I'm confident in it, stuff like that, and I go as safe as possible. I will be, if you are interested, posting now with my betting guides that will be coming out tomorrow. I will be posting how I did the previous week, so if you want to get a gauge on that, if you'd like to follow my official plays, check out the YouTube channel membership. I'm very cheap, by the way. Regardless, I'm happy you're here. Thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you for dealing with this pause in the video here. Moving on to the next fight, guys, and this has Fight of the Night written all over it. We have Uros Medic taking on Johnny Parsons. I'm so excited to watch this card. I am so excited for this card. Guys, yeah, this has Fight of the Night on it. I'm predicting this to be Fight of the Night. So, we have two very good strikers, but the thing is, we have Brawler versus Technique over here. Both guys, okay, like you've seen it all in their fights. Johnny Parsons will come in and he's like a technical Trevor Peek. You know, Trevor Peek comes in, he'll make you fight a firefight and then just swing with a giant hammer fist. Johnny Parsons will do the same thing. He will come in guns blazing, but those guns blazing isn't I'm going to come in, throw haymakers and brawl. While he can do that, and we've seen him do that, this dude throws technique in the firefight. Kind of like a little bit like we've seen with Robbie Lawler. You know how you'll see all of a sudden like very, very nice clean hooks, but this dude's going all forward, guns blazing. You know, like he's a very, very exciting fighter, and he's done that with every single fight you've ever seen him, especially coming to the Contender Series, UFC. He did the same thing. We have Uros Medic, who is very capable of getting into a firefight himself. He prefers to keep it technical, and he is a very, very good technical striker. Both guys are going to keep this standing. The only loss we've seen with Uros Medic is against Jalen Turner, and to be honest, it's aged a little bit well, but after that, he's gotten very, very nice wins against very nice opponents. This fight can go two ways. Johnny Parsons will come in, completely overwhelm Uros Medic, and get a finish, or Johnny Parsons is going to come forward, Uros Medic is going to clip him, maybe get him with a couple leg kicks or something like that, stop his momentum, and get a finish. This fight is a 50-50 fight, in my opinion. This is the most 50-50 fight on the card. If you had a gun to my head, I would pick Johnny Parsons just because when we see guys with crazy pressure looking to like really, really slug it out, Johnny Parsons does that better than than I would say most fighters that we've seen so far, but he can absolutely get clipped, especially by a guy like Uros Medic. He is a very, very clean striker. Very tough fight. This could be fight of the night. I'm going to ever so slightly, like 51-49, lean to Johnny Parsons in this matchup. Moving on to the next fight, this is another tough fight. We have Amanda Ribas taking on Luana Pinheiro. Now, Luana has put together, like, you don't see, especially for the strawweight division, she's been flying under the radar a little bit. She's 11-1, and since she got into the UFC, she's looked, honestly, pretty good. She's looked pretty good, but then again, the competition level is not there. The thing that I really, really hate with this is the split decision win against Michelle Waterson-Gomez. At this point in her career, Michelle Waterson is one of the worst fighters in the division in the UFC. I don't like this. She ran into issues here. She was hesitant. She kind of didn't know what to do in this fight. But other than that, against the other, I don't want to say, Michelle Waterson, she can't hang with the other guys. That's what I'm really thinking here, because I'm saying, the rest of the division, from what we've seen with her, she's looked very powerful. She has no problem coming in and swinging. She's been, it's tough to say with her because she can get sloppy, but she's powerful for the division. And that's something really important to know. It's kind of like Marina Rodriguez, where not technique at all, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying she can hit hard, she can visibly rock these girls. She's taken on to Amanda Ribas. Now, she's coming back down, and this is important to note, she's coming down to the 115 division in this fight, where she has found success in the past. She went up to flyweight for a little bit, and won and lost, and just didn't look good. She's coming off of a horrible performance against Macy Barber. It was it got a little bit scrappy, but Ribas just didn't look good. It's really strange here because, and this is why I'm having trouble. Luana has looked good against the 115-pound fighters, but Amanda Ribas is, she's no Wei Li. She is not up there with Rose Namajunas. She's not up there with Wei Li. The talent level is just completely different. But Amanda Ribas is kind of sitting in that middle area, in my opinion, where you take a look at the girls that Luana has taken on, Amanda Ribas is significantly better than them. But if you go to look and go to the top of the division where Wei Li is, there is a huge, huge difference in the level between Wei Li and Amanda Ribas. That's where I'm having a little bit of a tough time picking this fight. I just knocked over my headset. Sorry about that. Had a little bit of an interruption there. Anyways, so that's where I'm having a tough time with this, because I could very well see Luana clipping Amanda Ribas going down, but I can also see Amanda Ribas finding success, especially at this strawweight division. I'm just not convinced of Luana yet. That's the thing. And that's why this tough is so fight. This tough is so fight. Man, this whole breakdown's all over the place, right? This fight is so tough. I'm going to pick Luana because she's more dangerous. I'm not high on Amanda Ribas like the rest of anyone breaking down this fight, really. People think that she's good. I don't think she's good. I just think she's better than some of the people in the strawweight division. So I'm going to very, very reluctantly pick Luana to win this fight, but I could very well see her getting control on the ground. I could see her getting picked apart just like she did against Michelle Waterson. She can hit and rock Amanda Ribas. That's all I'm going for. She looks good for the division in that sense, but it's a very low confidence pick. I'm going to pick Luana to win this fight, but, anything can happen in this one. Moving on to the next fight, we have the debut of Peyton Talbot taking on Nick Aguirre. Now, this is really, really tough to pick. Again, I apologize that I keep saying that, guys. This is a really, really tough fight to pick. Peyton Talbot coming into the Contender Series, he looked pretty good. If you take a look at his highlights, he has a lot of nice finishes. But then he fought Reyes Cortez. And honestly, guys, I'm not seeing what everybody is. I'm not. The UFC's high on this guy. Everybody's high on this guy. Everybody coming off the Contender Series is like, oh my God, look out for Talbot, future champion. In this fight, he ended up getting the win, but he didn't look so good. Like, he was trying to be creative with his striking, but sometimes it just ended up looking weird. There was nothing special about it. Like, I see this guy, he got a win. Like, I don't, like, tell me if I'm alone in this thought. I'm just not impressed. I'm just not. I'm not saying he sucks. I'm not saying he doesn't have technique. Like, he looks okay. It's just nothing special. That's how I look at him. He's taking out Nick Aguirre, who, if I'm not mistaken, this first loss in the UFC against Daniel Argueta was short notice, but apologies if that's a lack of professionalism on my end. I don't recall. But regardless, like, he lost his first fight in the UFC. But other than that, he's a high-pressure grappler. He wants to come in and wants to take you down. He has some nice finishes, but they're against, like, nobodies. You know, like, he fought in the art of scrap. You know, so the reason I'm having a tough time picking this fight is because both guys are relatively not proven. From what we've seen, though, so far, I will say Peyton Talbot. And I got to say, we know that the UFC is trying to promote Peyton Talbot. They want him to win. This dude does have potential. I'm going to pick him to win ever so slightly. But they're like, again, I'm not overly impressed by him. He has nice pressure, nice striking. You know, he's just an okay fighter. I need to see more from Nick in this fight. Or in the UFC in his entire career, to be honest with you. And that's why I'm going to pick Peyton, but I'm not even really sure about this one. Moving on to the next fight, we have Jordan Leavitt taking on Chase Hooper. Now, both guys, this is a very interesting fight because both guys have been in a little bit of a similar spot in their career as of recent, because they have put together a nice record with recent success, recent setbacks. They've looked okay. Now, Jordan Leavitt, we've seen both these guys for quite a while in the UFC now. They've been fairly active. They both have had their moments. He lost to Paddy Pimblett and then had a very, very nice, shocking. By the way, I thought he'd win this fight, but it's shocking that Jordan Leavitt found a KO because all this guy does is hold you and wrestle, right? But then against Victor Martinez and a lot of people are kind of high on, he got a very nice win here. Chase Hooper, though. Chase Hooper, we've seen huge improvements from him, right? He's won, he's lost, he's won, he's lost. He's looked okay in some fights, and he's looked good in some fights, and then he's like looked absolutely horrible, like he doesn't belong in the UFC and others. But I will say, against Nick Fiore, he has shown massive improvements. Chase Hooper, I've been following his career because I like Chase Hooper. I always root for the guy, right? I've been following him and moving into the lightweight division, and he said that he's been really, really putting in the work instead of just dieting, and that was very evident in this Nick Fiore fight. He has shown massive, like night and day difference in his striking here. I can only imagine that the rest of his game is good. He is a very good grappler. He lacks takedowns. He lacks takedown defense, but once he gets to the ground, he has very good jiu-jitsu, and that's what I would imagine. So Jordan Leavitt's going to come in. If they're striking, Chase Hooper's going to win. I don't like Jordan Leavitt striking. I think that him getting a KO was not a fluke, but like it's so unlikely. Chase Hooper has a good chin. This dude has heart. He comes in. It's a very good fight. It's a very good matchup we have here. I'm picking Chase Hooper to win. Chase Hooper's been a little bit inconsistent, so I don't know if I'm going to be betting on him, but I like Chase Hooper in this matchup. I trust that he has gotten better because, again, he said that he's been better. He said he's been putting in the work, and in that last fight, he's really shown that he is a quite improved fighter. Now, I gotta say, I believe that he will keep that up. I believe his takedown defense will be better. I believe his jiu-jitsu game will hold up and possibly even be better, although his jiu-jitsu has always been good. Jordan Leavitt comes in. He's a wrestler. Nothing good stands out about him. I can't believe he got a knockout in his last fight. I'm picking Chase Hooper here to win this fight. Moving on to the co-main event, we have Jake Matthews taking on Michael Morales. Now, when it comes to a matchup, both guys, this is a very good matchup because both guys can do everything. Very, very good fighter. Jake Matthews, though, I will say, hasn't looked good as of recently. You can see by his last 5. Win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. But the problem is these last 2 performances. Darius Flowers, anybody would have beaten Darius Flowers. Matthew Semmelsberger, while Matthew Semmelsberger is pretty good, Jake Matthews got destroyed in this fight. And I was really high on him against when he fought Andre Fiala, but then that win hasn't aged well at all. So, like, you go back to his record, and I don't know, man. Like, I'm not high on Jake Matthews anymore as I once was. He's still a very good fighter. He's still a good prospect. He bounced back with a nice win against Darius Flowers, but Michael Morales seems to have all of the momentum. But the problem is, Michael Morales, while he's looked great so far, he's looked great since he came into the UFC. I'm not as high on Michael Morales as everybody else is. Everybody's talking especially like he was going to steamroll Max Griffin. He won the fight, a little bit of a technical brawl, but Like, nothing really stands out to me about Michael Morales. Like, he's a good fighter. He's a good prospect. He has 15-0 and looked good doing so. Nothing really stands out to me as this dominant prospect as everybody else is making him out to seem. I could very well see Jake Matthews getting an upset here, but I am going to pick Michael Morales. I like the momentum. I think he's going to be a little bit more of a killer in there. Both guys have the option to take the fight wherever they want. I just think Michael Morales he'll have the reach advantage. He will ever so slightly have a height advantage, but I mean, like, the stats are even his way. 24 versus 29, the momentum's on his side. I like Michael Morales in this matchup, but I mean, like, I'm still not as high on Michael Morales as most people are, but I think he will get past Jake Matthews. Give me Michael Morales to win this fight. Moving on to the main event, guys. This is a main event. This is such a good matchup. Guys, I apologize if you've been a little bit annoyed me throughout this video by saying, like, hey, this is a tough matchup. It's very difficult to pick. Whoever did the matchmaking should do the matchmaking for every single card. This fight is a 50-50. This fight is a 50-50 like Tom Aspinall Saragih was I was talking about last week. Brendan Allen versus Paul Craig. I'm a fan of both guys. I think both guys are great. Brendan Allen has put together a very, very nice win streak against very good, besides Sam Alvey. And I love Sam Alvey, but man, like, he doesn't have it anymore. Been very active and been looking better and better every single fight. I really started putting him on my radar when he destroyed Andre Muniz. He looked so good. And he submitted Andre Muniz. Submitted him. Came back. Got another fantastic win against Bruno Silva. This guy can do everything. He can strike. He can grapple. He shows incredible patience. This dude is a killer. But Paul Craig, I will say he has had mixed success in the past, right? Of course, he was a 205er. And this is where I really, again, I'm very interested because he dropped down to middleweight. And I was like, Paul Craig, it's going to be too much. This dude's a big guy. But he looked good at the new weight. He looked good at middleweight. He didn't look drained. And he had a good fight in this fight. Both, like, honestly, like, the fight was a little bit back and forth, but Craig looked very strong at this weight. And this is where I'm thinking, like, what if these two grapple? Craig looked very, very strong against Andre Muniz. He's used to fighting the 205, where he's a bigger guy, right? So that's something to keep in mind here. He looked very good in the second. I believe it was the second round, right, where he got a finish here. Regardless, he was able to get on top. He landed ruthless elbows. He looked very good against Andre Muniz. So both guys are coming in my opinion, with a lot of momentum here. Both guys are fantastic grapplers. Brendan Allen definitely has a striking advantage, but Paul Craig is very powerful, very strong. I don't know how this fight's going to go. That's why it's so exciting. This is one of the main events that I'm most excited to see in quite a while, to be honest with you. Brendan Allen versus Paul Craig is a huge fight for the division. Could you call them prospects at this point? I don't think so. Like, two guys looking to really, really get into top contendership. Like, if Paul Craig beats Brendan Allen, he's right there with the top. Brendan Allen, if he beats Paul Craig, he deserves a top 5 opponent. I believe both guys have a nice future in the UFC. Paul Craig, we've seen him get beat up before, because, like, let's say Brendan Allen comes in and significantly has a striking advantage. We've seen Paul Craig get beat up, and we've seen him pull off wins. This dude's jiu-jitsu is real, but so is Brendan Allen's. I'm not even confident Paul Craig will be able to submit Brendan Allen, because, again, this dude just looks better and better every single time we see him. I'm so excited for this fight. It is a true 50-50. If you had a gun to my head, I'd pick Paul Craig because, again, at this weight, he looked insanely strong. Maybe he can shut Brendan Allen down. Maybe he can hold him. Maybe he can get top. Maybe he can force his way into his submission. Maybe. But Brendan Allen could just KO him. It's so tough. I can see Brendan Allen rocking him and Paul Craig not being all there, and then Brendan Allen finishing the fight, because Brendan Allen on the ground is so patient. What a good fight. What a good fight. If you had a gun to my head, I'm picking Paul Craig, but this is a true 50-50 fight. It is a true 50-50 fight, and I cannot wait to watch it. With that being said, though, guys, that puts an end to this full card breakdown and prediction for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Apologies again that I was a little bit unsure on quite a few fights, but it's such a good card. You guys have to watch this. A card from the early prelims all the way up to the main event. You can't miss one fight. It is going to be an absolute banger. I can't wait for it, guys. Betting guide is tomorrow. If you guys like to tune in for some more predictions and betting content. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Leave a comment with your picks down below. I will see you in the next video. Take care.